Hello, everyone. I'm Everton de Oliveira, the Professor Agua from the Groundwater Project. And today, I'm very glad to bring you here Andrew Millison, a permaculture design teacher or professor, better, and a storyteller who has dedicated his career to helping communities restore landscapes and manage water sustainability. Andrew is widely known for his educational work at Oregon State University and his popular YouTube channel. I do recommend you to take a look. The link is down here. Take a look at his videos, are amazing. You're gonna learn and you have fun as you learn. That's very good work. So in these videos, he shares accessible lessons on permaculture and ecological design. His projects span the globe from arid lands in the American Southwest to innovative systems in India and beyond. Okay, Andrew, very welcome. Could you start by telling us about your journey? How did you first discover permaculture? And what drew you
Sure.
to focus so deeply on water and land restoration? Please,
Yeah.
welcome.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me here on the podcast. I really appreciate it. It's great to talk to people in Brazil and around the world, your audience. I learned permaculture first in Arizona. So I learned in the desert. And when you're in the desert, of course, water's the most critical thing. And in permaculture, we teach that water is really the foundation of design, that all of the other design layers come from the water design. And that's where we start. And so that stuck with me from early on. And I've always kept that water perspective. I live up in Oregon, which is a wetter area, and the water's not as much of a direct issue where I live, although we still have very dry summers. But my travels around the world now, I've traveled to, I think, 23 countries. Much of that is looking at these types of projects, permaculture, land restoration, water harvesting, and every climate. I mean, even you go to the wet tropics, I mean, everywhere, water is still really the foundation that we end up building these other subsequent design layers on. So, I mean, that's why water is so important to me, really.
Very, very good. You're talking about that, and we have a work I mentioned. You have a work in close to the Amazon. There is actually is in the Amazon, and they're flooded, but 4 to 5 months of the year, and the other part of the year, they don't have water to drink. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So we have
Yeah.
to solve problems even in a place that you expect people to have lots of water. That's
Yeah.
not true. There are lots of
Well,
problems.
it's the drought flood cycle.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
either drought or flooded, but that's, just a symptom of
That's exactly, there's not
dysfunctional
an in between.
landscape, basically.
Exactly. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So you've reached thousands of students through your courses at Oregon State and your YouTube channel above all, right? What role do education and communication play in scaling permaculture solutions worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, my belief has always been that we actually have the information that we need to fix the world.
Yeah.
It's not a question of do we have the know-how to fix our problems, fix water cycles, revegetate landscapes, build soils, grow food, all of that. We have the information. There's some of the problems are distributing that information and then activating the human will to do something with that information. So I feel like, especially through the YouTube videos where I blend information with art and inspiration. I mean, I try to spark something in people to actually get them to activate and do something. And so I feel like putting out the information's one thing, sparking the human spirit is another, and that's the confluence. I mean, where those two things come together is really the goal of my work.
That's very good. That's very
Yeah.
good. So I agree with you. Well, throughout your because you've been doing this for some time already, have you noticed some change in people's mind? Because I've been working on the same goal as you are with different tools and different techniques, but I realized that today people are more prone to accept. our message. So I think using your metaphor, I think the spark is closer somehow. It's not there yet, but it's a bit closer. What do you think?
I agree. I think that people can see the trajectory. There's that old saying that says, be careful where you're going, or you might just get there. And people can see where societies are headed, where the environment's headed. I think a lot of people are affected by extreme weather events, by soil degradation, by food shortages, by, political unrest, all these things that are rooted in uh, impoverished landscapes. I think people are feeling those effects, and I think people also can see clearly now, and these are the types of stories I try to tell, is places where we're successfully fixing these problems.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't actually take much. That's the thing. A lot of times the solutions are pretty darn simple. And so, I mean, as soon as people get tuned in, oftentimes people start to feel the fear first of like, where's the world heading? And then when they're actually exposed to solutions where you're like, wow, it turns out that we could reverse course fairly easily, that's a very activating thing. So I think it's happening. I mean, I'm I'm immersed in this, so it's hard for me to tell, if it's just the bubble I'm in or what the world is like. But I feel like people are definitely awakening to the solutions that we already have at our fingertips.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm also immersed in the bubble, so it's hard to tell, but I have the feeling, the clear feeling that it is coming, that it is coming. So that's and your work is well, in a sense, the success that you're having is sort of a sign of that, right? We can see from that because then you have people. Well, I from Brazil watched your video here and invited you to come. So it is working somehow, right?
Yeah, I have almost, I mean, just not to brag, whatever, but I have almost 100 million views on my YouTube channel now.
Yeah, I see.
So
I know. That's
and that's
impressive.
some, I'm like, that's some eyeballs.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Very good. But
Well, I would say like that when I can be consumed by the darkness, by pessimism and by just like the overwhelming nature of just all the problems we have in the world.
oh, I
And
know. I know. No, no. But come on.
but like my
You know,
work is but when I start, but then when I get into this stuff, when I start to do my work and I look at these projects, I mean, suddenly like, you can get swept up by the inspiration
oh,
of
definitely, definitely.
like, yeah,
Yes.
what's happening out there. Yeah.
Very, very, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So much of your work emphasize water. That's what I would do. Talk about water.
Yeah.
So and like capturing, slowing it, and using it wisely. Why is water such a cornerstone of permaculture? You touch the surface there. And what are some key principles anyone can apply? You mentioned it's
Yeah.
simple, but and also I interview Erica Guys. You know she wrote the book Always Water Always Wins, and she's part of that slow water let's say movement that she calls. So could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, well, permaculture borrows a lot from another system called the Keyline Design System or the Keyline Plan, which was developed in Australia in the 1950s. And that plan lays out a thing called the scales of landscape permanence, which basically tells you the order in which to design, right? And so, the first thing you look at is climate. The second thing you look at is landform. These aren't things you can necessarily change, but they are part of your understanding of a site. And then the next step is water. So, water is the first place that we actually start to intervene when we're designing a site. And then access follows water. So, based on the water pattern that we're trying to design for, then we put the next layer, which is how to, the circulation within a site, whether it's roads and vehicles or pathways, is how do people get around the site. And then beyond that, then we start to look at placement of structures, permanent vegetation, subdivision of land. Everything kind of comes from that. But when you have water at the foundation, then all of those other layers make sense. basically. So that's one part. Another thing is looking at the world, looking at all the landscapes of the world in terms of their position within the watershed. That's the fundamental piece of information you need to make good design choices. Like if you don't know where you sit within the hydrologic basin of the watershed, then you don't understand how soils are distributed, how water is going to flow through your site at the, during heavy rains, how vegetation is distributed, where the wet spots are there. Like nothing makes sense if you don't look at it from the watershed perspective. And then when we do look at it from the watershed perspective, everything becomes revealed from there. So I always start with the watershed at the beginning of any sort of analysis process, whether it's me designing or whether it's me just understanding what someone else did, like what I'm doing with my videos. And I'll
Okay.
tell you a really interesting story, not to go in too much of a tangent, but I just got back from a five week, 5 country tour. Much of it was filming, some of it was teaching and that kind of thing. Very diverse sites, started in Saudi Arabia and ended in East Timor, Timor-Leste.
Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
They speak
and
Portuguese there. They speak Portuguese there.
they speak Portuguese. Well, they speak Tetun, and Tetun is like a meshing of Portuguese and the indigenous language.
Yes.
So I don't speak Portuguese, but I know a lot of Spanish. So I actually felt like I understood a
You
lot.
could
I could
grasp something.
understand the
Yes.
signs because of the Portuguese. So yeah, and they're also, I mean, like a lot of other countries that were colonized by Portugal, they're actually the most Catholic country besides the Vatican on the planet.
Exactly.
The
Amazing.
Pope visited there, so it was very interesting. But I was visiting a guy who I've met at different permaculture conferences. His name is Ego Lemos, and he has been the spark that has done this work. They have restored over 700 springs on this in this country. It's not a big country.
It's
They
very
only probably have,
yes.
yeah, it's a small country. They probably have about 3,600 springs that would need to be restored in order to actually restore the hydrologic cycle of the entire nation. So they've
Wow.
literally restored about 20% of the, you know, important water providing watersheds of this entire nation, which has majorly turned the fortunes of people because it's the wet, dry tropics. So they have a wet season, a dry season, and it's very, very mountainous area. A lot of people are doing marginal, steep slope agriculture, and there's a lot of malnutrition, everything like that as a result. But I mean,
Wow.
these are simple, like the work, it was very basic, and some of the stuff that I've seen, you've seen my videos from India or even stuff from Africa with the World Food Program,
Okay.
um, where you might say it's a little bit technically sophisticated, a lot of the water harvesting structures that they're doing, and they've got this scientists working on it, whether it's the Pani Foundation and all the universities of Maharashtra, India, or whether it's like the different scientists and government people that work in the UN World Food Program, all that stuff. And I was like, wow, in Timor, I mean, a lot of the structures were pretty basic. Some of it I would even say was pretty rough. And seeing even in that form how absolutely effective it was, how there was entire watersheds that were now producing spring water in abundance year round, where previously the springs were going dry. I was just like, it's, this stuff really works. That's the thing, is it really works.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll ask you the contact of Ego Lemos, these people, because that'll be a person for me to interview because that'll be interesting. And he speaks Portuguese after all.
Well, I mean, he speaks Tetun. Does he speak Portuguese? I don't know. I don't, I mean, I'm not fluent enough to
But he
understand.
speaks English as well.
He speaks English, yeah, very well. Yeah.
Okay, okay, so
Yeah.
fine, fine. Oh, those are nice. But our you just arrived, so these videos are coming up soon, I imagine.
Yeah. I have a long list of videos to edit. So that one's going to bump up. I would say right now it is mid-September or near the end of September. I would say by like sometime by the end of January, I'd hope we'd had that video out,
Okay.
hopefully sooner. But that's going to be a big one. Some videos are easier and harder to do. That one, I was there for a week. We did 5 days of filming. I
Oh,
visited sites all around the country. I went to this other island. I interviewed the president. I interviewed the minister of agriculture. I interviewed the minister of education.
oh,
It was
really?
like
That was
deep dive.
that was
So
huge.
yeah. So a video like that is going to take a little longer to
I
get out,
understand.
but it's
I
going to be a big
understand.
one. Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm glad you've done that. I'm really glad.
Yeah.
We need more Andrews around to spread the word. That's very good. That's very good.
Mhm.
So, do you have any other examples? You can mention something. Most of our viewers don't know the example in India, the Maharashtra that you've been there. You
Yeah.
can say something so people can watch your
Yeah.
videos and learn from there, or in
Yeah.
US as well, whatever you have. I think that the India is the major example we have, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of them. Although, I mean, I don't know if you've watched my work from like Niger,
Yep.
with the World Food Program or Senegal, but that's it's
Yep.
a different strategy, but those are really huge examples also. But I would say that the work of the Pani Foundation in Maharashtra, India, is, I would say that's the single biggest land restoration project on the planet.
Sure.
Uh,
I agree.
yeah. I mean, they're working with, they've mostly fixed the water cycles of in the neighborhood of 8,000 villages, something like that,
That's
right?
amazing.
And so if you think of each village having an average of maybe 2,000 people, you're talking about 16 million people. 1,000 hectares, right? What's 8,000 times 1,000? 1,000 thousands, right? A thousand, so 1,000 times 1,000 is a million. So you're talking about like 8 million hectares, maybe something like that. I mean, a lot of land, and this is spread all throughout these villages. Each village is doing the watershed of their village, and it started. It was the inspiration of a very famous Bollywood star named Amir Khan, who is a leading male actor, one of the most famous leading male stars in India. And he initiated a contest between villages to see which village could actually install the most amount of water harvesting structures in a 45-day period. And over a 4 year period that they ran the contest in that form, like I said, they had somewhere around 8,000 villages participate in the contest.
Amazing.
Um, and they,
8,000.
yeah, and I mean, India has a lot of people. It's mind-bogglingly populated there, right? I'm talking about East Timor. The population is something like 1.3 million people in the whole country of East Timor. Okay, India, you know, call that billion, right? 1.4 billion.
Yes.
So they basically created this contest to see which village could install the most amount of water harvesting structures in a 45-day period. They gave them training in watershed restoration. The villagers went out. There was big cash prizes for the best villages. The villagers went out competing against each other, digging contour trenches and retention ponds and
Hand
check
digging,
dams
hand
and
digging, right? Hand digging.
hand digging. And if they put in a certain amount of volunteer hours, then some heavy equipment was provided to them by the government. So there was sort of incentives to really getting a lot done by hand. And the transformation's radical because
Yeah.
45 days you do the work, then you get the monsoons. The monsoons would go and reach and charge up all of these water harvesting structures, build the groundwater table, and immediately they had a water reserve in the ground that they could then use in the dry season to grow a second crop. They were just growing a crop during the rains. If the rains fail, of course, then your crop fails. But now, in just one season, they were able to build a groundwater reserve that could see them then, you know, once that groundwater reserve went for a few years, the water table would be so high that they basically had, 2 to 3 years of reserves built up that even if they had,
Like
you
a
know, drastic failure of the rains, they would have enough groundwater reserves to irrigate for years. So I mean it's really dramatic. There's that one, and then there's other projects that I've highlighted in India that are different strategies in different locations that are basically having the same effects. Some of them are a little more like interesting. Like one of the projects I did a video about in Rajasthan, which is more of a desert environment, where it's more of a flatland area. Most of the villages in the Pani Foundation are villages. Maharashtra is very hilly, so they're like villages that have their own little watershed. So it's sort of easy for the villagers to repair the entire watershed of the village. Whereas in Rajasthan, the projects I visited are more like broad flatlands.
mm,
And so they're creating these big lakes, big water collection structures that are diverting water from large areas into large detention ponds and actually interconnecting the ponds from one village kilometers to the next village. So they actually created like a region-wide interconnected system of water harvesting detention basins that built the and again, you start to have these cumulative effects that just built the groundwater of
yep,
an entire region.
exactly.
And from what we've seen there, and also some of the stuff that I've shown in Africa, where when you do a bunch of groundwater restoration, when you start to build water tables, people that are like way on the margins of these areas, their groundwater's going up too.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's that's very important. This is
Yeah.
this that 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 is what draw my attention from the very beginning. I'm a hydrogeologist, so
Yeah.
the so restoring groundwater is quite important. We have some in I usually comment with the hydrogeologists. They have a system. It's called monitoring aquifer recharge. They say that's a very bad name because nobody knows what does that mean, right? Because it's just hydrogeologists understand the acronym that they created. So it doesn't tell the people that they can do that, right? Because something like I said, the principle is quite basic. But let me ask you one thing. Like in India, for example, that you had this huge area impacted by this project, right? The temperature decrease, I've read that they had 250,000 wells that were dry and now have water again, right?
Hmm.
13
I don't know
million
if that's a
urban.
number that came from me specifically, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen that. I
Okay.
was reading that. Yes, it is
Hmm.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Incredible.
But would you could you say something if it's possible that this huge transformation is actually bringing more rain into the region?
At a certain scale, right? At a certain scale. And this is something that I've been looking into a lot. And we actually are in discussions about filming a project in Panama that has really measured the increase in rainfall based on their reforestation efforts. And this is the whole biotic pump theory.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. And I
That's
don't know if
exactly what I
you're,
was trying to
yeah, I don't
tell
know if
you.
your audience knows about this, but I mean, basically, the movement of atmospheric moisture is intimately intertwined with forests and vegetative cover, right? Trees and plants evapotranspire water up into the atmosphere that meshes with the clouds and becomes some of the rainfall. There's also the all of the different pollen spores and fungal spores and bacteria and little tiny particles that are exuded by trees up in the atmosphere become the nuclei for raindrops.
Raindrops, exactly.
Yeah, so I've heard a lot of anecdotal evidence of people saying that the rainfall has increased in our area because of reforestation compared to other areas. How big of an area?
Mm.
That's the question. And I've heard a lot, and I think it depends on the microclimate, right? For instance, I asked this question to Rajendra Singh, who's called the Waterman of India. How big of an area do you need to actually start to affect
Fact.
the rainfall? And so, you need a smaller area if it's like a contained valley that is in a mountain range that's like facing the ocean, like that's you're really directly capturing atmospheric moisture. Um, I know that people that have done reforestation in as small as like 1,000 hectares are reporting increase in rainfall. So, I mean, I don't know. This is a nut that I would like to crack, and hopefully a lot of people can get this. And when I do this Panama video, that's really going to be one of the cruxes because they have measured that, and so we'll get some of the data on that.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been reading about that as well. People say, but
yeah.
for to really impact, we need they say we need 100 kilometers at least.
Mm.
That's a lot.
A hundred square kilometers.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a lot.
yeah,
But those numbers are still, on thin air for me. I think I don't see
yeah,
real research that shows the number properly. But
yeah.
we have some guys that are mentioning for that. But in
And I
any
think I think the numbers are going to be different in different locations too.
exactly
Yeah,
from different places. Yeah, I agree
yeah,
with you. I agree with
yeah,
you. Yeah, well, like in the Amazon, we have a huge forest. That's a different,
right.
right? So it depends on where we are. Very, very good.
Yeah.
So, permaculture is sometimes misunderstood as a small scale or alternative, right? From your perspective, what are the biggest misconceptions and how do you see permaculture contributing to mainstream solutions for climate and water crisis?
Yeah. Well, I think permaculture is very valuable as a small scale strategy.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I would say that the largest number of people that have learned and are practicing permaculture probably are practicing on a smaller scale. But when we do see it scaling up, the effects really multiply and we see large increases. So a lot of projects I visit, they're not using the word permaculture, right? Or they're not using, it's not like permaculture specific, like they went through the exact steps what we would think of in permaculture design, like the Pani Foundation or the World Food Program in Africa. But I also have visited projects like the East Timor project I just visited that really are using permaculture as the basis of
Yeah.
their work. And it does work on a large scale. And again, like permaculture is somewhat of a conglomeration where it borrows from a lot of different systems. And in a way, permaculture is a paradigm, and permaculture is a way of seeing, and permaculture is a design system. It's all of these things. And so, I can say, I feel like permaculture still is the best word to describe things, many things that don't consider themselves permaculture. So you either say,
Why do
"Oh,
you
it's a
think
whole,"
is the best word? Why do you think is the best word?
um, because when I look at other words or other ways to describe it, you're like, okay, they are doing holistic watershed scale design that increases food and water security and builds economic livelihoods and
Shut
biodiversity
up. No.
and is also
So,
using alternative energy and what I mean, like you go on and on and on and on. Whereas if you understand permaculture, you're just like, it's permaculture, and all of those
the whole thing
things
comes
are
together. Yeah.
encompassed in there. So I've not found a word that encompasses the whole paradigm like permaculture does. But permaculture's, weakness is it's a word. There's no trademark on permaculture. Permaculture is now a word. You can't sue somebody for infringement for misusing the word permaculture. Permaculture is a word that can be used by anybody
Anybody.
because it's that far, which means that there's a lot of stuff that's termed as permaculture or permaculture thrown in a lot of places where you're like, that doesn't quite seem like permaculture, so it can be misused. And so it can be misused and it can then be um, misinterpreted, basically.
But
So I feel like a lot of the
that's
criticisms
extreme.
come from a misinterpretation of what it actually is and what it's doing.
But maybe I have another point for you. Well, we had the Green Revolution and you know the huge
Yeah.
monoculture and things like that. And permaculture stands like a well for some people they think it's sort of a hippie stuff, you know, for small scale stuff and sort of a prejudice against permaculture. That I felt that here and there people
Yeah.
that do know how it works don't see it that way, but then you have the step to then you have to learn better
Yeah.
and always learning takes some time, right? So it's
Well, I would, yeah,
that.
but I would say it's also a small scale thing that hippies use to create their homestead. It's that too. I wouldn't deny
No,
that
no,
that's what
no, no, no,
part of what
not
permaculture
denying,
is.
not denying. Exactly, exactly.
And that, and it attracts, it's a new way of thinking, and it attracts fringe people sometimes, or people that have different ideas. And so, it's like I understand why permaculture has that rep, and I can't say like no, there's no loopy permaculture people out there, or people that are giving it a bad name. But it's just like, I don't know, do you throw out the whole thing because there's some people using it in a way that is not the same way that you're using it? I don't think so. And for me, what I try to do with my work is show how this paradigm of thought,
It's
which which the Pani Foundation represents, which the World Food Program Resilience Program represents, this paradigm of thought is the biggest impact is on the basic livelihoods of people in need. I mean, that's where we see the 16
exactly.
million people in Maharashtra, the 300,000 hectares that have been restored in Niger,
Yeah.
the over 700 springs that have been brought back to life in East Timor. Now, the people that are being affected by these projects are not out there making, TikTok videos about it or whatever. I mean, so and also it's a cultural thing. Like in the United States, permaculture, because people are comfortable, people are not starving,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
Then permaculture is mostly more like excuse me, like a niche kind of a lifestyle choice.
Yeah, it could be. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know how it is in Brazil, but in the United States,
It is the same. It's the same.
it's more of a lifestyle choice. Where
But
a lot of other places, it's not a lifestyle choice. It's like a mode of survival,
oh yes.
you
Oh
know?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, today, what I see is that today we have a hype on nature-based solutions, for example, and permaculture kinds of fit into that, right? Somehow
Yeah, absolutely.
we can take that wave from, you know, and profit from that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I see this as helping uh, working with permaculture. I work in the permaculture with water, basically, right? First,
Yeah.
to restore the water, and it helps a lot. It helps a lot because then you do using nature-based solutions for that. It's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's like it doesn't need to be called permaculture by any means.
Oh yeah,
You know.
like
I
you
mean,
mentioned that.
yeah.
Many people
It's
don't even mention the word, right? They don't even
Yeah,
know
and in
what they're
fact,
doing.
if you many of my videos, most of my videos at this point, I don't mention the word. I only mention it at this point if it's really relevant to the story. And a couple sites like um the East Timor video, I also just visited um a project in Sumatra, Indonesia, where they are turning monoculture palm oil plantations back into biodiverse jungle habitat in order to increase habitat for endangered orangutans,
Oh,
right? So, like,
That's
really cool stuff. This is
great.
specifically a permaculture project, right? The people are like, we are permaculture people, we're doing it. Same thing, East Timor, they're like, this is permaculture. So projects that are like, this is permaculture, we're going to use the word permaculture. But with the World Food Program, I think none of the videos I've made with their work in the Sahel of Africa, I don't think I've used the word permaculture at all, you know, because
Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
they would be like, well, they'd probably have some very specific feedback about why what they're doing is not exactly permaculture, you
Well,
know, because you could start to split hairs in every direction if you want, right?
yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
interesting. Interesting. We have lots of people, and many people are working towards the biotic pump and like revegetating to regenerative development and things like that. How do you see permaculture and water sensitive design shaping the future of agriculture, cities, and community resilience?
Yeah, so permaculture, I mean, fundamentally, it is about design patterning. And so I mean, you asked a very big question, right? It's very broad. We're like, oh, cities and agriculture. And I mean, it's basically like,
Everything, yeah,
how do we
everything.
use permaculture to redesign or design everything? You know, and permaculture is about pattern understanding. So we're talking about water. It's like the fundamental pattern of water that is the most relevant for most people's projects is the watershed. So we look at the pattern of water flow within that watershed, and then our design will be a patterned response to the pattern of water flow, right? So the same thing applies in each of those situations. We look at cities, we look at how runoff is going through cities, we look at food deserts, we look at tree cover, the urban heat island effect. We look at those patterns, and then ultimately a permaculture design is going to be a patterned design response, a design pattern that's responding to the
Exactly.
to the existing uh, conditions, right? I mean, I don't know if that's too vague, but that's kind of like the wide view of how permaculture is responding to conditions in each of these situations.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think our time is up here. So,
Okay.
what message would you like to leave to with our audience about rethinking our relationship with water and the land from all your experience?
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say we can fix this. The examples that we have out there that are working really well. And it's just a small shift to seeing how, we're doing all these things already. We could shift the things we're doing to actually start to create regenerative landscapes, regenerative water cycles. And there's actually hope in the world. And I would like to see the shift happen towards that hope because we have a lot of tools that are available to us. And I want to mention one thing is um, I've actually started to raise money for these projects, right? So we did the first video through the Earth Repair Fund, where the video itself is a fundraiser. We did one for a amazing project in Hawaii, which is a restoration of the traditional Ahupua'a system, which is the native indigenous agriculture water management system. The one for the video we're doing for Sumatra is going to be an Earth Repair Fund video where we actually raise money to buy more palm oil plantations and turn them back into biodiverse forests. And in Timor, we're going to raise money, help through that video, we're going to raise money to help them restore more springs, get to all the springs of the nation. So,
Yes.
my personal work is like turning a lot of these theories. Okay, how and the attention, the sort of eyes on my work, how can we actually turn that into concrete regeneration on the ground through the Earth Repair Fund? So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there because I think that like we need, I personally am like, okay, teaching. Let's let's try to really stimulate some of these
Make it
projects
happen. Make
for
it happen.
more on the ground work. Yeah.
That's very good. That's very
Yeah.
good. So, thank you very much, Andrew. Your work is very inspiring. I hope our interview reach out many people that could follow your lessons and your more than your lessons, because many people are already aware of permaculture on our audience. Some are not, but at least they can be inspired by your, initiative, how you're doing things and you're putting things into place and you're making it happen, showing examples from all over, and people can get the spark that you mentioned. Say, well, I think I can do that, and they can start their own work and regenerate some water sources and place like that. Congratulations for a job well done, and I see if we can help spread your word to way more people, because it's a very nice work that you've been doing. Congratulations.
Awesome. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate you
Thank
taking the
you.
time to interview me. Yeah. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.